We know they're out there. And we know we need to find them. We target them for different reasons. But when the line tightens, we all feel the same. We feel alive. The water moves around us, and the world feels far away. We are here. We are fishing. It is a search, not just for fish, but for all things most important. For family and friends. For tradition and tranquility. For conservation and competition. All of us find what we are looking for. Yet we continue searching. We cast, and as the lure soars, our hopes soar with it. This will be the one. They tell us insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting different results. But we are not insane. The fish are still out there, and we are fishermen. We have been since we were young, and will be until we can do no more. And then, when the ice begins to freeze within us, we will...
If you're Mark Healy, you don't just live on the water, you live for it. You get up, get your shades, grab a spear, grab a boat, grab a friend. Okay, take a breath. Hold it. Hold it. Here, hold this. Go, go, whoa. All right, now find something to jump on. It's probably too high. It wasn't too high. Time to get going? Time to keep going. How's that feel? And now this is living. For those who need water to breathe, Costa sunglasses. If you're Mark Healy...
Hi, happy Friday. It's Nicole here for episode 7 of ABT Lockdown Live. Boss has called in sick, so you got me tonight. Wish me luck. Don't worry, Steve's not got coronavirus. He's there on the chat. He's just feeling a bit under the weather, and he will be back with us next week. So I know you're probably just as nervous as I am, Steve, about how this is all going to go tonight, but don't worry. I got it all under control. So tonight's show. I can't promise you any of Steve's bad jokes or inappropriate comments, but what I do have is a great lineup of guests to talk all things fishing. Who have we got? We have 2019 Duffrods Brim Non-Boater Rookie of the Year Travis Ryan joining us. We've got Ian Miller. Now, he's a great supporter of ABT. He's an AFC Champion, and he's got a bit of coaching for us on just how to properly execute Miller Rod Rage. Now, before this week, I didn't know about it, but it is a thing. Miller Rod Rage, how to do it right. We've got Anthony Calzo back on the show with us this week. So last week, Anthony, he gave us a great tour of his boat for the Mercury Show Us Your Boat segment. Has to be one of the most polished boats in the bass tournament scene. But this week, Anthony is here to talk us through the Pro Lure range of products. He's one of their pro anglers. Some great stuff from those guys. Who else? We've also got Declan Betts on the show. He's going to have a chat to us about how he's been keeping us all well entertained through our lockdowns. And earlier this week, Steve took some time out. He caught up with an absolute legend of our sport, John Schofield. Now, with John, there were just too many stories to try and fit into one episode. So we're bringing you tonight part one of our catch up with John Schofield. You'll have to come back next week for the rest of it, but that's coming up as well. So we've also got some great prizes to give away, and as is the tradition on ABT Lockdown Live, let's kick off that chat on the YouTube channel. Let's get it going tonight. Our first prize of the night. Let us know where you're watching ABT Lockdown Live from tonight. Got what have I got? I've got some Costa merchandise, some buffs, some stickers. I've got some AFC DVDs, and why not? We'll chuck in an ABT shirt as well. So get on the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. We'll draw that one later on tonight. So how about let's kick off tonight's show. We'll hear from one of our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll hear from Ian Miller for Remember That Time.
So here he is. We finally tracked him down, one of the original Brim Pro Series, AFC Series 1 angler, and the man who's synonymous with rod building in Australia, Ian Miller. How are you, buddy? It's you're in a bit of a tragic part of the world, mate. You had the bushfires, now you got COVID. You know, you're just waiting for the big three, aren't you?
Yeah, at least I had a good business plan. Not that it's doing me that much good at the moment, but no, we'll be right. We'll be right. I'm just gonna chill and have a beer with you while we answer some questions or whatever, and have a chat and enjoy the Friday night.
Well, you know, I suppose we're like you know, there was no business plan that ABT could have where we could have predicted where it's like, you know what, in March, you probably can't run another event for 6 months. How are you going to deal with that? It's like, oh, that's a curly one. But this Lockdown Live show is one of the things that we've done, and that's been really popular, of course. And one of the most popular segments is talking to these original AFC anglers. In season 1, it was called the Brim Pro Series, and you were one of 5 anglers, I think, that did a Brim tour all the way from Brisbane to Melbourne, mate. And it was they were good road trips, you know, including overheating bearings and late nights on the beers and fish and cameras. And it was stuff going everywhere, mate. You did 2 seasons?
I did. I did the first 2. I had, unfortunately, work commitments stopped me from fishing 3 and 4, which I also qualified for. But, we certainly made a big shakedown cruise out of those 2. There wasn't much we didn't have to deal with from memory. I remember on the second one, which we're maybe not talking about tonight, but when I was paired up with Carl, his car caught on fire on the way home because of the dodgy trailer that someone else had palmed off onto us. It was just like one thing after another. Anyway,
it's all good, mate. That's all part of the times on the road. I remember pulling up behind you when there was smoke coming out of your gear, and that was just standard. You know, we've talked to Adam Reuter already about him ditching his cameraman on the Gold Coast. And we basically broke everything that could be broken over those years, didn't we?
We did, and the thing I learnt is that we were making TV, we weren't fishing a tournament, and most of the time we weren't fishing at all. So once I came to terms with that, I was okay and actually did all right. But yeah, the first few events, how many did we do in that first series? 4?
I think about 5.
5? Yeah, I remember I started off terrible, but we were still trying to fix stuff on the boats which had been thrown together the day before on the Brisbane River. I was still like trying to get my electric to function properly because of the way it was mounted, like late in the afternoon failing light with a 6 a.m. start in the morning. It was like, okay, I think I'm going to be ready to fish if I can actually, you know, make my rig go properly.
No, look, they were great times and a great set of anglers too. Like, you know, the original team that fished that, like the guys from the South Coast, you know, yourself, Ridey, Starlow, you know, and even Bushy, you appeared at a lot of ABT events in the early days. And I think that's, you know, your Miller Rods brand was the one in the first 4 or 5 years of ABT. You needed the Miller Rods Brim Buster, didn't you? That was a big marketplace for you. Yeah,
it was. It was huge. It opened up a really big market for me in that genre of rod. And the cool thing about it was I was sort of designing on the run, so I could always introduce a new model or just really figure out exactly what was required in any particular type of lure application, just from our own involvement in the ABT Brim series. And I remember one time one of my mates said to me, you know, I went down to the weigh-in and I walked along the foreshore where all the boats were pulled up, and like all the guys that were doing good had at least one Brim buster on board. Some of them had heaps. And I thought, yeah, well, that's pretty cool. I never thought about it that way. But, of course, there were different times then. There wasn't the same amount of product available off the rack as there is, or as there was even 10 years later, let alone now. And I was just able to deliver a really good product at the time when it was needed. And it's still, you know, they hold their own. Most of those models are still currently in use. And
Yes.
Although I've managed to sort of get into the much more finer points of lure application and make Brim rod models more application specific, you know, rods like the Brawler, which we would all Starlo, Righty, and I especially were using in that early AFC stuff on the Hawkesbury River, and that's still a current model. That's still my most popular Brim buster because it just does such a good job of fishing a light lure with finesse to structure, and then being able to haul kilo Brim out if you need to. And it's a hard animal to make, you know. So it was cool that I came up with it at the time, and it's even better that it's stood the test of time.
Well, the physics doesn't change, does it? Like the fish does a certain thing, the rod does another thing, and if it's now or 10 years ago or in 20 years' time, nothing much is really going to change in that battle, is it?
No, it's not. And, you know, the only difference in the Brawler is the cosmetic. And and the guide train is obviously a lot higher tech now than it was then. But essentially the action and, you know, the blank, everything about the blank is pretty much the same. I kind of got that sussed because one of the first things we did back then, of course, was fished oyster racks. And we, you know, session after session, we'd be going, so how are we actually going to get these things out of those racks? You know, so you can hook them, but getting them out was another story. But there was more than one co-angler that both Slick and I had, especially on the Hawkesbury, when we dumped a kilo or a kilo and a half Brim into the boat, just threw it in.
Yeah.
That they had to pick their jaw up off the deck. You know, it was pretty full-on fishing back there. Unfortunately, it's not quite as hectic as it used to be for a number of reasons, but the Brawler still has a real place. And, you know, even as recently as some of the comps earlier this year, you know, being used down at Gippsland Lakes in the Straits, still a go-to rod for pulling big black Brim out of those barnacle-encrusted, you know, natural banks. So it's really, you know, got a place.
Mate, the one of the AFC episodes I remember you doing some really cool close structure stuff was the event you won on Sydney Harbour, which I remember. You know, you were a bit of I think you were on the rowing docks, like, and you had places where that lure was going out of sight, but the Brim was coming out, and that's the difference between winning and losing in AFC. You have such a small amount of time to do it. You've got to have things go your way, then you win. If they don't, someone else wins. Yeah,
that's right. And you know, everyone's got to understand with AFC, it's not just going fishing for starters. It's not just fishing a tournament. Secondly, it's filming a TV show. So, you know, you're not. There's a whole lot of pressures that you don't really consider until you're actually doing it. And if you don't have the right tackle, then it's pretty difficult to get a good result. That's for sure. And you know, back then we were learning about so much stuff that. You know, even during the AFC, we learned a lot about Sydney Harbour. You know, some of us hadn't really fished there before, so you know, it was pretty cool to be able to. You know, last time I watched it, I thought, yeah, we're learning stuff there, and there's some Brim history unfolding as this comp is being filmed, and you know, it's great that it's documented.
Yeah, it is. And we've got a lot of that ABT footage from the early days. We're starting to roll up there now. Some of the early days in Foster, you know, looking at that reef science tank full of gigantic blue nose brim that possibly hadn't seen many lures before. It was the real
Right.
Wild West of brimmin.
Yeah, it was.
Apart from yours and Carl's car catching fire, any other memories stick out from the old AFC days?
Yeah, there's plenty, mate. I mean, those, as you said, they were big road trips. They were, stacked with one experience and memorable moment after another. But winning the Sydney Harbour round was obviously right up there, because you got to remember you're fishing against the calibre of some pretty damn hot fishermen in Slick and with Timmy. And apart from the memory of Slick continually beating me when I had a good day just by pulling an amazing day, like his best day ever out, which he's done to me in the ABT as well as in the AFC. It would be the Sydney Harbour win for sure.
He did it to all of us in the early days. And look, I've always said that there was a cohort of writers that put their balls on the line. You know, yourself, Starlo, Bushy, were guys that turned up and risked the reputation in a tournament. A lot of journalists ran, and I really give you guys kudos for accepting that challenge and not running away from it.
Well, thanks. And I appreciate that, and I understand it. And I've used that analogy, maybe not the balls on the line analogy, but I've suggested to many people in our industry since then that if you really want to test yourself, and if you really want to sort of get yourself in the mindset of everybody that you reckon you're better than, go and fish a comp. And it's not until you actually put yourself out there, put your balls on the line, as you said, that you will really find out how good you are. And that's it's just an undeniable truth of going and fishing the comp.
I think the modern day equivalent of that are the social media champs now. They've got big followings, but they get to curate all of their fishing and their footage, and they only show you the good things. Like, there's nothing as raw as being put to the test and being watched do it. We put cameras in boats nowadays at ABT. There's no secrets. If you have an awesome capture, it's recorded, and if you have a rubbish day, it's also recorded. So, we've always been pretty raw at ABT and unapologetic, because we have a level playing field, and the one that wins it is the one that's obviously fished the best and had the best luck. So, yeah.
I mean, things can and can't go your way, but that's the same for everybody. And what I love about your current ABT filming is the immediate washdown of knowledge that's coming from all the guys that you got a camera on the boat. So you can see how you fish, or how Chris Hickson fish, or whoever, and not only see the difference in your tournament approach in terms of techniques, but even the difference in how you execute very similar techniques at times. Yeah. And it's a really good insight into seeing how a good angler works. And we always said the best way to learn was to be a co-angler, and, you get a draw. Sooner or later, you're going to get drawn with really good guys. Well, what you're providing now is almost that experience to anybody that cares to tune in. It's, really valuable.
That's it. And what I think it does is it also gives other boaters that experience, because I normally wouldn't get an opportunity to see how Chris Hickson fishes. But when I'm cutting his highlights up, I get to see some of those idiosyncrasies, and I get to share them with everyone. And of course, our motto is "Who shares wins." So we love sharing it. I really appreciate that virtually every angler asked to run a camera says, "Yep, no worries." Like a couple of years ago, some of them were a bit dodgy, and we had a few incidents where they forgot to turn it on and stuff like that. But that basically doesn't happen nowadays. Everyone appreciates the fact if they do well in the highlights, it helps their sponsors and it helps their profile, and it's good for them. So, and it's good for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great opportunity. You should always grab those opportunities, and that's how I see competing in ABT. It's an opportunity. It's you just can't get that sort of experience anywhere else. It's the bottom line.
Now, mate, you've been a sponsor of ABT, on and off sometimes, but for nearly 20 years now. And if it's not the ABT, it's the anglers fishing in the ABT. You've got yourself to a position now where we talked about 15, 20 years ago, where someone else is doing lots of the rolling that's not you, So these production range rods you've got now, it's sort of getting back to the old days where you look at a lot of boats and there are a lot of guys have those available for the right price, Miller rods, production rods that are getting the job done. It must make you feel good, make you feel good to see the whole thing turn the whole wheel around, mate. It's using your experience and getting them OEM built for you, and being the designer and not the worker is the way to go, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was always the plan, mate, to be honest. For 20 years I was basically the chief rod designer for Shimano, and I continued with Miller Rods, the brand and the label, through all that because it gave me a real way of developing, continual development. There's nothing quite like custom building rods to make sure you're staying on the cutting edge of what can be done with fishing rod design.
Yeah.
It gave me opportunity to fish, which is absolutely, a fundamental part of understanding how the rod works. And it kept my brand there because I knew, one day that the time would come when I'd no longer be doing that job with Shimano, and I really, really love it. I love that. I love designing rods. So, yeah, it was great that I did that because I was able to basically just step into the production design role for my own brand, which is really cool. And let's face it, I'm not getting any younger. I can't be hunched over a binding bench for my whole life. And the biggest issues for me as a custom builder were making enough. Even at a premium price, I could never make enough. So being able to produce really high-end rods as a production rod allows me to supply the market at a good price, and all those people plenty of people that wanted them but couldn't get it for one reason or another. I guess they've got them now. It's good to hear. It's good to know that you're seeing them in the boats.
Yeah, and look, mate, just thanks for joining us tonight and telling us through those stories. But give us a bit of a shout out to your website and your socials where people can go to get their Friday afternoon rod candy that you're famous for.
Yep, you can follow me on Instagram, just Miller Rods. There's a couple of Miller Rods pages. We run one for the USA, that's pretty cool too. Don't be afraid to follow that one. Yep. And we also have a new one in Sweden, Miller Rods SE. Also pretty cool to watch what's going on there. But just plain Miller Rods is the one to follow, the brand on Instagram. Also Miller Rods Facebook page. I'm personally on those socials, but if you're more interested in the rods themselves, that's where you'll sort of see what's going on.
That's awesome, mate. Mate, thanks for joining us tonight, sharing a beer on a Friday night at Lockdown Live, and let's hope you get to you hope to wet a line again soon, and don't work until dark every day, mate. You got to go and fish them.
I'll try not to. I can't believe we got through this without you asking me about Miller Rod's rage back in the AFC days.
Well, let's go there then. I don't know if a couple of beers down Ian Miller might inflict a bit of rod range on me, but let's face it, you were famous for it back then.
Well, the funny thing was, editing is a powerful tool in television.
Yep.
So, I definitely, I'm guilty of rod rage, but I reckon the only one that I never saw act any rod rage was maybe Starlo. Because I watched the other guys do it and watch the episodes as they came out and think, how come I'm the only one that gets pinged for this Miller Rod rage? But then I realised it fitted the name and the brand. So my advice is, if you're going to show any rod rage, especially Miller Rod rage, do not harm the fishing rod. You can't harm the fishing rod. There's a real technique involved in it. Generally, it involves a line just wafting in the air with nothing on the end of it, and that's why you're going into a rage in the first place. But you don't want to have a lure. You really don't want to have a lure tied onto your rod if you're going to get involved in rod rage. What you need is just an unencumbered rod with no lure weight on the end, and you need to whip it really fast and maybe just graze the surface of the water with it for a little bit of effect. Don't hit the boat. Don't slam it into anything else. Just really like let it out with a good old fashioned grunt, and your Miller Rod Rage is done.
That's awesome, mate. That's a real trap for young players. If that rod hits anything, you might as well just throw it because it's going to be busted, isn't it?
Yeah, warranty's gone, and I'll be asking.
Well, there you go, mate. Thanks for joining us again tonight. And look, the rod range was famous. If someone else was doing the edit, you've got no control over it. So, mate, just let it fly.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome, mate. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, mate, on ABT Lockdown Live.
Okay, no worries, anytime.
What them sons of fishes up to now?
Fellas, I give you the force trolling motor. It is the most powerful, the most efficient on the water.
Yep. Most powerful. We're really in trouble now.
And it's quiet, too. You can't swim here.
What a dumb bass.
Well, I tell you what, half of the people that watch ABT Lockdown Live are probably non-boaters. And non-boaters, of course, the other essential element of an ABT tournament. It's the boater and the non-boater going out together. In the bass tournaments, of course, it's shared weight, trying to catch the 5 fish or 4 fish together. But in Brim, it's every man for himself. And the best man, who was every man for himself at the back of the boat last year, the Rookie of the Year 2019, the Duffrods Rookie of the Year, Travis Ryan. Trav, welcome to the show, mate. Good to have some non-boater content.
How you going, Steve? Good, yourself?
Good, mate. It's you got a great looking stash behind you there, mate. You got a full quiver from anything from broadbills down to brim. It looks like.
Yeah, got a few there.
I saw earlier in the year, mate. You had an offshore boat, like a seafarer or something like that, and you boned it, and you're just non-boating now.
Yeah, I had a 6 metre cruise craft, and Colin and I were going to go around Australia.
Yeah.
So I sold it, and obviously with this coronavirus and colleague being sick, so we couldn't go. So yeah.
Well, it was good timing anyway, mate. I'm sure you find it harder to sell a boat now than you would have half a year ago. So.
Oh well, I wish I still had my boat.
Would you have been out in it today? Is today the first day Victorians go fishing?
I dare say I would have been out there if I had it. Yes, yeah, for sure.
Mate, let's run through your achievements from last year. You won the 2019 Duffrods Rookie of the Year, and it's for the non-boater who does the best in their first year of competition, mate. And you're like a poster boy non-boater for someone who's just jumped in, boots and all, mate. You said, if I'm going to do it, I'll do it properly. You went to a lot of cool places in Australia. You got some good results, and you went fishing with a whole lot of boaters, mate. It must have been a whirlwind experience for your first year.
Oh, I still can't believe what I've learned in 12 months of everybody, the boaters, the non-boaters. It was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and look, that's one of the things, I suppose, we all know ABT's motto is who shares wins. I suppose you're a great person to ask, what is that learning curve like? Like, was it Warren Carter or something? Who got you into the tournaments, and then what did the curve look like, the learning curve after you started?
Yeah, Warren Carter. I was trying to catch meter flatties in Lake Tyers, and I couldn't catch them. I was throwing everything at them. I didn't have a clue about plastics or hard bodies. I just thought they were myth, you know what I mean? And then I was talking to Warren Carter at our fishing club, and he said, no, come out with me, and I'll show you how to catch brim, and that's how bycatch,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, or whatever. And he showed me, and he said, look, bring whatever you want, live bait, whatever. I'll towel you up, don't worry. With these lures, I'm like, yeah, okay. And so we went out, and he showed me, wow, what a learning curve from. I knew nothing about plastics, hard bodies, but then I went away. I'd done one comp. I went away, thinking, I need to do a lot of practice, and so I went out by myself, and it took a long time for me to get the bite, and thought I was doing something wrong, and I talked to Warren Carter and other people, and they just told me to keep resisting. And once I started getting the bite of the fish, I started learning how to go about what I was doing, and gave me the confidence to keep going. And then last year I thought, nah, I'm doing a full year this year. And I was allowed to do it by work. We're pretty busy, but I actually got to do it and went to some pretty cool places, and I've learned so much. Like within 12 months, it's just, I'm confident now I can go out with a hard body or a soft plastic and at least catch something. If it's not a brim, it'll be a whiting or a flatty or a leather jacket, something. So it was a major learning curve for me last year.
That's awesome, mate. And you did a lot of Australia. What was your favourite arena that you went to? Like, it could be the place where you had the best fishing, or the prettiest, or the most awesome part of Australia you got to. What sticks in the memory banks?
Albany, that would have been WA. Would have been there. What was the first one in WA?
There was one in Albany, and then there was one on the Blackwood River, the second one. So
the Albany. Just to meet everybody over there, and a lot of people from Victoria as well went over, and get the guy's name, but he invited us all to his house, and
not the mayor of Albany, Kim.
Kim, that's it, Kim McIntyre. What a great bloke, He invited 20, 30 people to his house, and we all had a meal there, and everyone pitched in and helped out, and it was beautiful over there.
They're pretty famous, the dinner at the Mayor's place, mate, and it's all part of the WA experience. Whenever we get down to that, I agree, that southwest part of Western Australia, beautiful part of the world. The Blackwood River just looks like it's, if it was in New Guinea, it would be full of black bass. There's that many snags in the joint. And then and then Albany it's a combination of a lake and some cute little rivers, but the fish stocks are amazing in there. So it's a brimmer's paradise, isn't it?
Oh, it's beautiful. Even going to Blackwood, I got to fish with Peter de Groot. He actually won it.
Yep.
And what a gentleman of a bloke, he just all over there. Even Gladstone. I'm unfortunate. I was hoping to go to Foster this year and do the New South Wales. I love that north coast of New South Wales. I just wish we could have done more this year. But last year, from South Kippy, where else we go? Gladstone, WA, they're all good spots.
Everything's got its own little idiosyncrasy, which makes it pretty cool. So my next question to you is, what was your coolest fish or coolest moment as a non-boater last year? What's the one that sticks in the memory of the coolest thing that happened to you?
Probably catching that big brim on pre-fish with Mark Zarek at Gladstone. Nicole got a good photo of us last year underneath the bridge there, actually.
Down the tunnel, that's it.
It was definitely my first over kilo fish, and I got it in board, and I had a lot of fun that day with Mark, and just Gladstone was beautiful,
Yeah, it's a good place, isn't it? Now, was that kilo fish of yours? Was it a yellowfin or a pikey brim?
Pikey brim.
Yeah, so it would have been a big black-looking, ugly thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the big lips, the big blue lips, it was fantastic. I loved it.
Have you got a photo of that? Because if you have, we'll give it to Nicole and we'll get it to put it up, and we'll show everyone how gnarly they get when they get over that 35 centimeters.
Yeah, that was a good fish. Mark was doing something on his boat, and I thought I'll throw over there, and I never had a clue what I was doing, so just threw it over there, and it was only in not even 100 mil of water, and it just come up and smashed me. And I actually got to see it, so it was it was wonderful for me. That was great. Yeah,
that's awesome. Now my next question is sort of related to that. What was the coolest thing you saw happen on the front of the boat with all the boaters you fished with last year? What was one of the coolest things you saw? Because you get to witness stuff that you might be the only person that ever sees it happen. So,
there's so many. Like, all the boaters are great. They they guide you through it, try to help you. Coolest thing last year.
Or biggest fish, or what sticks in your mind?
Fishing with Brad Hodge was a big one last year. We're at Bin River, and I actually got my first bag, and it was a big bag. And
I remember you. Were you leading at Ben last year? Was it you leading or second or something?
Yeah, no, I was leading, and I got towed up by Neil Kelly on day 2 at Marlow. So
Yeah.
But yeah, just fishing with people like Brad Hodge, like they're amazing. They just catch fish just where you wouldn't think there'd be fish. You know, they're bringing in keggers. Like,
Yeah.
it's just amazing to see. So yeah.
Yeah, some of the guys have really had misspent youths, mate. They've spent way too much time catching fish, and they've just got the touch, haven't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. That's for sure.
That's awesome, mate. Now, for the non-boaters watching this show that are probably sitting on the sidelines and thinking, oh, should I do it? Should I go? From someone that's just jumped in the deep end, what's your advice?
Oh, do it. Do it for sure. Get in there. Like you've got the webpage, ABT Angler. You can go in there, ask questions. There's a lot of people on there that'll give you advice. I went there, and obviously with Warren, but I was a bit blessed that way. But it is hard because when you first do it as a non-boater, and you're not guaranteed, so you want to get your entries in early to make sure you get your accommodation, your flights, or if you're driving, organise holidays for work and all that kind of stuff. But even just talking to you guys in the office, just assuring people, it was good.
Yep.
After my first one, the nurse, I was obviously settled down a little bit, and I just kept on applying when they come up.
Yeah.
Hopefully get down on lower the list so I can guarantee to get time off work. Accommodation, all that stuff. But then you get to meet people and you get to travel with them. Like, now I've travelled with Cam Whittams, the Stewie Walkers, and Grayson Thong, and Steve Duff. And, it's just amazing. It's just like another big family, like away from your family. Like, everyone looks after everybody. It's just someone's whatever Lecky stuffs up, someone's got one. You know what I mean? They all share. It's just amazing to see.
Yeah, and I think that is solid advice. If you're doing your first round of tournaments, always put your entry in early, because if you can't do it, we always can refund your whole entry fee. The only time you lose your entry fee is if you don't turn up on the day of the tournament. So any time before that, you can sort of cancel. And and yes, you will meet people, because you're fishing with so many boaters. You'll meet people who are looking for a travel partner or looking for somewhere to stay, and it doesn't take long to, all of a sudden you know everyone, and it's easy to make plans, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Much easier. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, mate. Look, thanks very much for joining us on the show tonight, mate. Is there anything else, any other advice you want to give the non-boaters of the world, or are you going to keep it under the hat because you want to win a few more of these titles?
Oh no, who shares wins. Look, I've learned so much off people. It's not funny. I'll share any of my knowledge, which is not much, but just equity of the boat. Make sure you offer your boater money for fuel, or no throwing over the boater's shoulder. Give him his space and that stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was just taught from the start. You just don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Just just take your 4 rods. You don't need to take 20 bags of tackle and stuff like that. You just take 1 bag, your lunch, and all that kind of stuff, and
a bag of Z-Mans.
Yeah, bag of Z-Mans. That's about it. A couple of hard bodies. Yeah, I went in and sport a fortune on lures and stuff, but I never needed to. Soft plastic were my thing last year, and I was taught to just keep it simple, and it will come. And it did come, so I was very lucky. So.
Oh, well, that's awesome, mate. Big shout out to you for winning that award, mate. And let's hope that it looks like maybe in the second half of this year we can get a few tournaments done. So we'll see how COVID goes through the winter, mate. Thanks for joining us tonight, mate, on ABT Lockdown Live, and hope to see you at a tournament soon.
Too easy. Thanks, Dave. Cheers.
Well, how good was that from Travis? Some great advice there on getting into the tournaments as a non-boater. And also from Ian Miller there. Remember, the number 1 rule of rod rage: do not harm the fishing rod. Lock that one away. Don't forget, you can let us know where you're watching from tonight for your chance to win that prize pack with the Costa merchandise, AFC DVDs. We've got that ABT jersey in there. Jump on the chat, let us know where you're watching from. Our next guest tonight is a pro angler with Pro Lure. So we've got Anthony Calzo coming up. Pro Lure, they're great supporters of tournament fishing across both the kayaks and the boats. I went to the office early today. I raided the prize cupboard while the boss was away. I managed to pick up some pro lures. I've got a set of 3 pro lures that I'm going to give away after this segment. So to win these, pay attention. I'll have a question at the end. Need to answer it for your chance to win this set of pro lures. So that'll be coming up. We've got Anthony coming up after one of my favourite Suffolk ads coming up now.
Hi, I lost a big fish earlier today. Wasn't using suffix. It was about this big.
Look, slow down there, cowboy, okay? A fish in the lobster van, huh? You want your fish. Sorry, honey, that fish is gone.
Always use the best line, Suffix 832.
So it's a brand that we've all heard about. It's a brand that I think all of us have in our tackle boxes nowadays. It's ProLure, and it's an Australian-designed and hatched brand. I've got Anthony Calzo here from ProLure, mate. You've run the journey with some of these guys, haven't you? You've been associated with this brand for a long time.
Yeah, how are you guys? Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I've been with ProLure for about 7-8 years now. 2013 is when I jumped on board, pretty early in the piece. Back then, ProLure had a nice range of soft plastic lures, but in 2013 was the first year that they brought out the D36, a deep diver, the hard body version of the crank that we all know, and the S36, a shallow, the year after. And yeah, it's been a great journey.
It is, mate, and that range has expanded now to, like, I went to Tassie earlier in the year, and you have now, great black brim jerk baits. You've sort of got a bit of everything now for wherever you are in Australia. That evolution of the brand seems to be, I suppose, mirrors the growth of the brand. The more lures you make that work, the bigger it all gets. And at ABT, we've loved to have we had ProLure involved a couple of years ago. Yep. Then we sort of missed a year, but you're back this year, and that's mirroring the acceptance, I suppose, that these lures have in the marketplace. What I want to know from you is I want a bit of a history of Heath and ProLure, mate, from your point of view as one of their pro anglers. Just tell us how it all started and give us the story. Yeah, so back then we're talking. I came on board 2013. ProLure had been kicking along for a couple of years before I came along. A couple of the anglers that you might know from the Hobie series, Luke Kay and Jason Meach, those guys are already on board. And I actually responded to an ad on the old Brim Master forum back in 2013. I've been fishing. The real old days. Yeah. So I wasn't too involved in that scene, but the Oz Brim and Brim Master forums, I saw an ad on there and had a go. I'd been fishing the teams tournaments with Nathan Light for about 3 years, 2010. And we thought we'd have a go, and Heath got us on board. So that's sort of how I became involved. I saw it as a bit of an opportunity, for me to improve and to become involved in a brand. I wanted to take my angling to the next level as well. I was really involved in the tournament scene back then. So that's sort of how I got involved and how it all began for me. So that original ProLure hardbody, it's won plenty of tournaments by now, and the range has expanded since then. Like Heath is built on the success, I suppose. Take us through some of the more modern ProLures and the story behind those. Yeah, so as you said, the crank is a very popular lure, and that was the first hardbody that we brought out. The deep coming out in 2013. So that was the first lure when I joined the team that I was using. And then that summer of 2013-14, we brought out the shallow version. And from then on, it's been hasn't changed really. We've put decoys on them, but since then it's remained the same. So great lure. But since then, as you said, we've designed and brought out a whole range of lures now, which really we're trying to cover in a whole range of situations and different species across Australia. So I guess the most exciting one is the ST Minnow that we've brought out, the ST 72 Minnow that we brought out recently. And we've just developed that over a period of, well over 12 months, from prototyping and designing, colour, testing it, and then finally bringing it out. So that's been really exciting. And the other one that we recently brought out was a sinking version of our surface pencil. So we brought out the sinking version of the 62mm pencil as well. In a 6-colour range. Yeah, and you guys are spot on with all the colours too. It's obvious that you can tell an Aussie's designed the colours because we don't get anything that doesn't catch the fish. And I think that's an important point, is the fact that there is a lot of local R&D and CAD design and testing. This isn't just something picked out of a crappy Alibaba catalogue. This is ground up R&D with all of the investment in the moulds and the whole shooting.
For sure, yeah. It starts, Heath sends around, I'll get a text off Heath with a sketch that he's put down on paper. What do you think of this, mate? And, it starts from there, really. It starts with that idea, the sketch on paper, literally the ground up, into getting the prototype, and then we start swimming that. And then, it all goes from there. So, but, the colours definitely, we work really hard on designing colours locally, which suit sort of, we obviously can't get every colour that we want out there, but definitely we try and, cater for the most options across Australia, as many as we can.
Yeah, and they are a good product, and one of the things about Pro Lures is they're good to fish straight out of the box. Like, you don't need to upgrade trebles because guys like you have said, no, you need to put these ones on. It might cost a few extra bucks, but you tie them on and away you go. Yeah. Do you know how many tournaments, like the little shallow black crank is like everyone's got one now? Yeah. How many tournaments has that been won? That's got to have won plenty by now. And plenty in the Hobie scene as well. Those guys love those things and have been using those black cranks for ages. I know the black crank was, a really popular lure up there, when the black camion was so popular up there in Lake Mac and so it's been known for a while that the black lure is a, really popular and effective lure. And I don't know how many tournaments it's won, but it's won plenty. And it's won me a couple of big fish prizes in tournaments as well on the deep version. Yeah, when I got that 1.92 in the basin a few years back. That's awesome, mate. Yeah, and look, we're going to have an overlay of that pick now. That's an absolute beast, that fish. From a sales point of view, what sells more, the deeps or the shallows now? It'd nearly be the shallows, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the shallows, I think, outdo the deeps. But, definitely the deeps are popular. Out of the box, as you said, they're a great lure. You rarely get problems with any swimming sideways or anything like that. Dressed in premium decoy hardware, which we made that decision a few years ago. I remember having that conversation with Heath around, look, mate, because I've been a decoy fan for ages, I think, since reading about you using them and being a fan, years ago, Steve. And and I said to Heath, I'm spending so much money putting these decoys on these cranks, mate. Have you ever thought about maybe, upgrading them? And then, and it was awesome that he was able to seal that deal because for $15, I reckon it's a cracking hard body, out of the box. You don't have to do anything to it.
No, agreed. And he'd start these things all on the back of a napkin, mate, with COVID now. There's not many restaurants open. He might have to go to the back of an envelope rather than the back of a napkin, mate.
That's it. And I think he's been designing a bit too, mate. He's probably had a bit of time to get the sketchbook out, that's for sure.
That's exactly true, mate. Now, you've been in and out of tournaments over the years, but last week on ABT Lockdown Live, we saw your boat, which I think is the most highly polished, organised, neat boat ever. Are you a bit of a meticulous angler?
People say that, and it's they're like, how do you clean the carpet? And it's by hand with two microfiber cloths and a spray bottle. So I spent a bit of time polishing it, mate. So that's awesome. It's a nice little rig.
Now I want to go through your favourite two Pro Lure baits. They can be soft or hard, and I want to know how you fish them because you probably fish them more than anyone else. So pick your favourite two. As I said, could be hard or soft, and let's run through them. So what would be your number one Pro Lure you take all around the country?
I guess it probably is the shallow black, S36, definitely. I know the new combat colour, the new army green combat UV colour has been really popular, and that's sold out. I've got one in my box, so everyone who's asking me for them, don't ask me because I don't have any, just like everyone else, okay? So, but the little black S36, I still tie that on most. I'll probably have that tied on my. I'm still using a 7'2" Muse Gold, 13 fishing, nice slow taper on it, and 3 pounds straight through. I'm a big fan of straight through. Yep, and I fish it on 2 or 3 pounds straight through every time. Yep.
And for the yellows, it's the straight retrieve, or do you pause it a bit?
Yeah. It's funny. I used to be a fan just of the straight retrieve all the time, but the last couple of years I've been mixing it up a bit more, especially when you're bouncing off the substrate a bit and when the water cools off a bit. So the last month, the mud flats here on the south coast, I've noticed that you might get a peck, and if they don't hit it, you just pause it, let it float, and they'll bite it then. Yeah, so I've been fishing suspend dots on them a lot recently too. So I'm getting into, I use suspend dots a lot, but I've been using them a lot more recently too. Just diving it into the substrate and stirring it up a bit and trying to get that pause and slow float. Yeah, but always on straight through.
That's awesome, mate. Now, that's your number one. Let's put that one to the side. What's your number two that you're going to take on a trip all around Australia to catch brim all over the joint?
Yeah, definitely for me, I love my plastics year round. So plastics are probably my go-to rather than the hard bodies. I'll always fish plastics as sort of my go-to option. Deep or shallow, I love fishing and even deep in the basin. I know all you guys who don't fish the basin much hate that sort of stuff down there, but I don't mind fishing them down there in that 27 foot, nice and slow on the 1/8 jig head. But definitely a live yabby, which is one of our plastics that we've had, the creature bait, one of our first plastics that we designed after the grub tail, and that's a fantastic little creature bait that we designed off paper from the ground up and developed that. So it's a nice little 60 mil, comes in a heap of colours. There's just so many colours in that range, and I love that little creature bait.
So fishing in and about, say you want to fish it in 30 foot of water, what line leader, what rig do I fish it on, and what jig?
Yeah, so I'm using either 0.4 to 0.6 PE braid, the Goshen PE. So pretty thin, and I fish a 3 pound leader at least all the time. So you pretty much, for me, I forget the 4 straight to a 3 if I'm fishing that open water, and that's year round. And I fish a stinger as well a lot. So just a single trailing stinger, just with some 15 pound braid attached to a little size 10 beak hook. Little octopus, I think they are, little octopus beak hook, just with a single trailer. Pop that into the head of the live yabby, just so when they peck the head, normally, often that'll get that. Yeah,
and
definitely.
What sort of jig head and what size hook in that jig head?
Yeah, size 1 I find is perfect. Size 1, you can get away with the size 2, but I just find the size 1. Size 2 just doesn't have the wide enough gape in it, I think, for especially the larger fish. But a size 1, definitely, yeah. So a size 1 is perfect for the live yabby, and for most of our plastics, the grub tail as well. Size 1's perfect. Yeah.
Well, I thought you might have said that plastic, because when I saw you pick up that handful of baits out of your boat, a few of them in there, wasn't there?
There was a few in there, yeah. There's a couple in there, mate. Yeah, I love fishing that. And here on my local Lake Illawarra, we fish them a lot on the 140, 128 hidden weight, just on the edges. Very shallow lake here, and just over those weed beds. Works well down the basin and up in Sydney on the moored boats. So fish them a lot on those really light jig heads as well.
That's awesome, mate. And I assume that since you're so meticulous, you have a whole lot of those stingers and jig heads already.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Like little soldiers in the box?
Yep. And you put them on, you tie them on to keep those little foam inlays from when you buy your decoy hooks to replace your trebles, and that's what you put them on, chuck them in your tackle box, and perfect.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. Well, it's great to see such a brand that Heath's worked so hard on, just improving from year to year and getting that acceptance to the point now where it's the number one lure that guys tie on. And I love a story like the olive cranker crab. If you can't get that, the army colour cranks and don't even see the pro stuff, they can't get it. You know they're a good bait, but it's got to that point. Yeah,
exactly, mate. And honestly, I've got one shallow and one deep in my box. And I can't even get them. So you can stop messaging me, everyone.
So the next 80 centimetre flathead that just comes and engulfs that deep is going to be sworn at.
Yeah, so I'm fishing that on 12 pounds straight through at the moment, mate.
Mate, the Pro Lures website, if people want to get more information on the Pro Lure, what are the socials and what's the website for Pro Lure?
Yeah, so the website's just www.prolureaustralia.com.au. That's pretty up to date with all of the latest products. All of the colours as well are in there. So it's got all of your tech specs on all the lures, all the softs, all the hards, our blade as well. They're all there. You can also buy some of the apparel. I know that's been pretty popular, which is fantastic. So go to the website for all that sort of stuff. Also got a supplier locator tool on there too, if you want to find out where to find them in your local as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And the socials?
In terms of socials, so Facebook, pretty popular. Heath and the team, we often we love getting people to share their photos with us of your catch over the weekend and through the week, and we'll post them up for you.
Yep.
Likewise on Instagram, which is becoming pretty popular too, and that's where I'm sort of most active with my sort of fishing profile nowadays as well.
That's awesome, mate. Well, they're a great sponsor of ABT. I know when you win a non-boater brim tournament this year, you get like a $500 pack of pro lures and
awesome.
a pair of Costas. So the
pretty
non-boaters are really enjoying them at the moment. I know the boaters are fishing them. So thanks for joining us tonight. And Heath, you do a good job with that. Anthony, you're a great pro staffer, mate, and thanks for joining us on Lockdown Live.
All right, thanks, mate. Cheers.
Oh, thanks, Anthony, for that. And also thank you, Heath, for your support of ABT and those awesome prize packs that we've been giving away to non-boaters through the brim season this year. I've had a look, and Anthony, he's on the chat now, so make sure you take the opportunity. If you've got any questions, pick his brain while we've got him with us tonight. And maybe he'll give us a bit of a hand or help you out answering the prize question. I mentioned before we rolled Anthony's story. I have a set of 3 pro lures to give away tonight. Ooh, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Did you see the size of that brim that Anthony weighed in at that tournament at St. George's Basin a few years ago? Did you pick out what he caught it on? I've got the set of pro lures here for someone who can tell me what he caught that giant brim on. Put it in the comments on the side and we'll draw a winner shortly. So still to come tonight, we've got another boat tour in the Mercury Marine Show Us Your Boat segment. We've got Declan Betts, he's still to come tonight, and also part 1 of Steve's catch up with John Schofield coming up as well. So why don't we keep this show rolling? Let's go to see who's going to show us their boat this week.
They're strong. Get in the boat, outside, right to the boat.
Lockdown, I thought I'd take you for a tour of my tournament bass boat. So I'm running a Stratos 285XL American bass boat. It's an 18'6" glass boat, and as you can see, the main reason why I chose this size boat, it fits perfectly in a standard double-sized garage. So I'll start at the front. So running a 24 volt, 80 pound Minn Kota Fortrex electric motor. I've got the Lowrance 3-in-1 transducer mounted to the bottom of that motor, which feeds back to the Lowrance HGS 12 Live. By far the best investment I've made since I've owned this boat has been the twin HGS Lives. Super clear side and down imaging, but the thing I love most has to be the mapping straight out of the box. No need for an avionics card, turn it on, and there's your maps. You know, fishing at the Gold Coast in the grand final, the first time I'd ever run up to the bay, no idea where I was going, turned on the HGS Lives, it shows me all the markers, it shows me all the channels, and even a suggested route that got me up there with no fuss at all. Recessed trolling motor tray out the front, keeps it all neat and tidy, and the sound is on a Marine Dynamics bracket. Alright, just squeeze around the front. Alright, as you can see down the front, plenty of deck space up the front, and firstly the rod locker. So rod locker built to fit 8 rods, but can easily fit 10 to 12 on there if you run a few across the floor underneath. And then plenty of other storage for tackle. So I've got in the middle, you can see plenty of space for tackle trays and other boxes. And then on the passenger side, we've got a second rod locker. This one doesn't have the mounts in it, so generally use that for things like the anchor, life jackets, my net, and that sort of ancillary stuff. All right, down at the console, as you can see, a second HGS 12 live. So this one's mounted on a Bass Boat Technology mount. Must say, I dealt with the guys at Bass Boat Technologies in the States, very easy to deal with. The great thing about it is it bolted straight in, no cutting, no drilling, just bolted straight in, and the HGS Live bolts to it. So running a second 3-in-1 transducer down the back in the boat for the main sounder, and also running a second transducer, which is a shoot-through hull transducer. So highly recommend one of those. The joys of the shoot-through hull at 80, 90 kilometers an hour. I can still see the depth at speed. So when I'm fishing in unknown waters, you know, I can keep an eye on that depth to know how deep I'm running. Running a controller for the power pole, and then onto the back deck. So as you can see, for a 18'6" boat, plenty of deck space for the non-boater down the back. Start off with compartments on the driver's side, nice big compartment, so generally keep a few spare hats because they do blow off, a change of clothes, and my life jacket. In the middle, we have live well, nice big live well, divided in the middle, twin pumps, definitely keeps the fish healthy all day. And then on the passenger side, another nice big compartment. Generally keep that one empty for the non-boater to put all their gear in. All right, into the back of the boat. So running twin Century AGM 105 amp hour batteries and a Minn Kota onboard charger. They are fantastic batteries. In the time that I've had them, can generally fish a whole day of the tournament and not notice any fade on the electric, even in you know, heavy current or wind. So I have been really happy with them. Down the back where the magic happens, 150 horsepower Mercury Optimax, 2007 model, probably has 700 or more hours on it. Touch wood, has not missed a beat, so it goes in for its annual services at Manning River Marine, and that's the only time it really has a spanner put on it. So on the motor, what gets it along, so a 24 pitch 4-blade Fury prop. Also have a 10-inch manual jacking plate, really gets the boat out of the water, really good hull shot, and gets along pretty nicely. And on the other side, as you can see, we have a 8-foot power pole Pro Series 2. So as you can see, 8 foot's sort of that perfect size. Any taller and probably have a bit of trouble fitting it into the garage. All right. The boat all sits on an Australian-made easy tow trailer. It is a twin axle trailer. Really takes the stress out of it when travelling. If something happens, it's certainly, you know, if a wheel falls off or something like that, it's not going to be as catastrophic as a single axle. So like I said, that's my tournament boat. It's a Stratos 285 XL. It's certainly an entry-level style of boat, but very competitive, and very, very happy with it, and love my Mercury motor. Thanks, guys.
What do you see?
Reminds me of muskies.
I love your mind.
They call it a bucket mouse because he's got a bucket mouse.
Wow.
I just want to tell you, I've been slaying the walleye lately.
That is so hot.
Ever bump the stump?
Suffix 832, the line that changes the game.
So here he is, the man himself, Declan Betts. You may know him from Facebook and his very detailed and very timely angler profiles in lockdown. You may know him as Wilfred if you've known him for a while, or you may just know him as the guy in the messy, scruffy red nitro that's just as regularly towed as it is ploughing along at 80 kilometres an hour, mate. Welcome to the show, mate, and how good does it feel for Victoria to be back on the program and winning a line again?
Oh, it's been a long time. A lot of time doing too much work and not enough play. That's definitely for sure.
So in your life, mate, you weren't like some of us that got sent to work from home on basically Australia's biggest 6-week bludge. Your work got busier. What do you do?
Yeah, so I retail nursery, and because everybody's stuck at home and got stuff all else to do, they've looked at their backyard and gone nuts. And and a lot of people seem to just treat it as a social outing to turn up at our work, and it's been off the charts. So
there you
we
go.
can't knock it back, but it's not exactly what any of us expected, but we'll take it.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Look, nowadays it seems like if you've got a well-paying job and you can turn up 5 days a week and get a paycheck, it's happy days for you. But I suppose you miss the ability to go and let off a bit of steam on the weekend, mate. What's your local for when you want to go for a quick fish?
Yeah, so our local for bream fishing, nearest one's about an hour. So yeah, we were a bit worried that we might have been capped on kilometres or something, and a lot of things would have been out of our reach, but thankfully we're going to have a free run at it. So yeah, either the Hopkins at Warrnambool, the Curdy's at Peterborough, or a little system called the Air, which is a bit further towards between Laversill and Apollo Bay.
Yep.
And also we've got Purrumbete half an hour down the road, which contains some of the biggest trout probably in the country, to be honest.
Yep, and because it's in your backyard, you probably don't fish it as much as you should.
Trout are fickle creatures, so when they're on, and when they're not, forget about them.
Nice, mate. Tell us a bit about your old nickname, Wilfred. I seem to remember the old show on Australian produced comedy on ABC, I think it was. Who gave you that one?
Yeah, the man whose boat I'm sitting in here, I think, somehow. I think Dan came up with that one, to be honest. Probably the ability to look a little bit shaggy at times, to be a little bit, loose at times, and just seemed to fit the mould apparently, and that sort of stuck pretty well, to be honest.
Well, mate, you may have cut the hair, but the nickname sort of stayed, didn't it? And we know in the cutaways here, we've got the photo that you put up the other night with the superimposed one. No, it's nailed it right on the head, because let's face it, you don't stop in at the barbershop every week on the way home to get a nice little trim up.
No, it's summer and it's winter. Yeah.
That's
So
good. That's
you've got to
old-fashioned,
keep
mate. That's real 70s old-fashioned school, isn't it?
That's right. You keep the ears warm in winter, and if you can, you do. If you can grow it, well, I can't see why not.
Mate, let's talk about, I've probably banged on about this a little bit much recently, but I loved doing your highlights from I think it was the second day of the first Gippsland event for ABT this year. And of course, you only buttoned on the camera after the fight was nearly done. And we saw some footage, and we're looking at it here, of a bream that you're going spectacularly light on, just getting away with a final lunge, probably taking the last little bit of strength out of your line. And we've all had the moment, down on the front knee, hand on the head, and it made a great meme, which was, should have gone to Hollands, mate. Just take us through that decision-making process there, mate. I know that what would make you catch, an awesome bag in a spot one day and said, mate, there's no way that's going to work the next day?
Yeah, so Hollands is one of those places that if you try and figure it out, you're probably pretty stupid. So I've decided that I'll just stop even trying from here on in. Particularly on that day, the water was really pumping in from the Lake King Victoria side through towards Wellington, and it was just filthy what was coming through. And I thought, well, the wind's going to keep up like that all night. It's going to keep pushing that shit through. And I thought, I just don't see it recovering, you know. And a few people that sort of locally have always said that it'll turn it to pus, and it looked like it. And even when I got my last couple of fish on that, I think it was the last, I needed one more, and I went right back up with not enough time to go, really, like, because I pushed right down the bottom, man. And I found just what I thought was a bit of cleaner water, and went clunk, and my non-boater went clunk, and I thought, yep, it's definitely part of the play, you know, it needs to be clean. And I think all of those things just sort of ran through my head, and and I'd seen what was going on in some parts of the Nico, and I thought, oh yeah, I reckon I can, you know, rack something out of that. And it proved to be fairly incorrect.
So I suppose, Declan, the moral of the story is, and this is why the meme happened, it's like, always go to Hollands. Should have gone to Hollands mean always go to Hollands. And I think you should turn it into a movement. Occupy Hollands. That's got to be it.
We see a lot of people come and a lot of people go. A lot of people try, a lot of people fail, and a lot of us who think we know what we're doing still fail. So it's just a hell of a lot of fun, to be honest, to fish up there. It's crazy, and that's what I like about it. And it's just the simplest thing is, we've all caught fish on flats. You can do it hand over fist forever and a day, and you don't lose too many of them. But Hollands, it's win-loss. It's you against fish. And after you've caught enough fish in your life, I think there'd be very few guys that would say to you that that's not the pinnacle of enjoyment in fishing, is just where they can win and you can lose. That's
hand-to-hand combat.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
So, I mean, some people have the school of thought in tournaments that it's not necessarily percentage play, and probably right. But at the end of the day, it's all about fun, and the caliber's there. And look, I've probably learned a few lessons. I actually did it 2 years in a row, if you really wanted to be honest. The previous year was a really shitty weather forecast, and I ended up taking Wally's boat, and Wally took mine because it was being a bit cranky as usual. And I neglected to put extra fuel in it that night, and I'm sitting up the Mitchell, and I'm just fishing the edges, and I'm looking out going, I could be there. I could actually be there, and I could be doing something about it. And that was probably even ruder than this one in a lot of ways, to be honest. So anyway, I actually was probably seriously a chance to, you know, I think if I'd got 4 fish, I would have got to second in that comp the year before. So
yeah. Anyway, we hope that you learn from all of these collective experiences.
Probably not.
We can give you a tattoo, Occupy Hollands, on the arm, all right? I know you've kept a lot of us entertained during the lockdowns, the various lockdowns all over Australia, with your angler profiles. ABT is very heavy on the techniques and the results, but we sometimes, you know, miss a little bit of the backstory about the people, and you brought that to a lot of people, mate. And it was a commitment, and well done on not making it open-ended, because you now understand that just putting one piece of information together a day actually probably takes a little bit more organisation than a quick Facebook message, mate. What was the motivation, and were you shocked with how successful it was?
Yeah, definitely shocked. Can't deny that. I think the motivation was, I've always probably written a little bit of a story for the people on my Facebook at the end of a tournament, and people seem to have enjoyed that. You know, it's not massively long, but it sort of gets the gist of things, and it's typically offbeat. That's just usually what I like to do, because I think we've all read plain words, and I like to make it a bit more interesting. And I think I did one of something or other, might have been a first comp as a boater or something like that, can't remember. And I sort of did that on my own Facebook, and then I was sitting around on a Sunday afternoon thinking, oh, is this what it's going to be like? You know, we're going to be stuck inside doing this and that. And I thought, oh, geez, that'd be good. You know, maybe I could do some profiles, and I mean, I've got to get the right people and make it interesting, and, you know, and give people something to do. And sort of thought, oh yeah, try that. And then obviously I sort of ran it past Rob Nishaw on the page, and then I ran it past you, and you were fantastically kind enough to knock it out in 30 seconds flat pretty much, and got the ball rolling with, you know, the sort of thing that people wanted to read. And my blurb at the start of that was fairly short and sweet. And I think the blurb at the next one was fairly short and sweet. And then it got a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And yeah, at times I was a bit scared that I might have overshadowed the players, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. And then yeah, so I started off writing a little bit about what it was like to be stuck inside and all those sorts of things. And, and then I sort of started seeing a way to link the people I was writing about and, just the angle that I thought that I could come at them from, because you get a bunch of different people of differing levels of knowledge for me personally, where, somebody like Alex Greisdorf, for instance, deserved to be in it, but he lives on the other side of the country, so nice for people to get a chance to see who he is and what he's about, because that wouldn't normally occur, but at the same time, because I've never been to WA, I just messaged him out of the blue. He was happy to do it. And, that's one example. So with Roscoe, for instance, I had to go through the Facebook page for their teams, and Cody pretty much must have pushed a few buttons and kept on him. And, that was the one I waited the longest for, and it was probably just that little bit of icing, because he's, he's all, as good as he is, it's also, he's pretty busy, and to try and get him pinned down was not so easy. So, yeah, I was pretty thankful when that came over my desk on pretty much the Thursday night of the last 4 days or something like that. So, and yes, it's easy to write. I threw a few to my mates early on, and they knocked him out, and I sort of kept on spreading it round and round, and then I started sort of thinking who deserves, or which angle, and it just snowballed, I suppose.
Mate, it's good. It was good gear, and we really enjoyed it, mate. It was great for us. The question I've got is, did you type it all on an iPhone, or did you use a computer?
No, that was all on the desktop. So,
good boy.
I sent them out in Messenger. They came back, so I could pretty much copy them, format it on the desktop, and write my piece on top of it. And then differing levels of spelling and punctuation from differing people. So I made a few fine-tuning moments for a few people, and everybody looked all right. So, not naming any names, it's all good.
No, it's all good, mate. You've got a real future in editing, mate, because they all came through great. I don't think I picked up any typos in them all. And when you're a publishing person for decades, first thing you see is all the typos. So, Ricky did a great job. What I want to finish off with tonight, though, is I want you to explain to me, if you were going to just go to Hollands and fish one technique, I want you to take our viewers through the cast, the lure, the technique that you use at Hollands that gets your blood pumping. Like, explain the lure and the rod and the reel and tackle and the cast, and explain to me what happens when the big 1.6er just sucks it down.
Yeah, right. So essentially, probably it's a Z-Man grub, usually on a, it's a 3/32 nail bomb. Yep. Just because of the weedless aspect. People will do different things, weedless an eighth or a bit heavier or whatever they particularly like. I know Tristo ran an open jig head up there a couple of years back, which we all found very interesting. And it's basically you punch it in as tight as you feel game and cast as well as you can, and just wait on it. And when you feel the tick, you just get into it and launch and give no quarter, basically. It's a real good test of knowing what your line strengths are, what they break at. There's going to be fish that will instantly take you in the wrong spot and break you straight away. Like, that's something we've accepted as part and parcel of fishing that place.
Is that because of the barnacles on the snags?
Oh, look, it's all of that. I think it's the barnacles. I think it's like what you see on top is just not even a reflection of what's underneath. I'd say a lot of it is old sharp growth. I've never put the scuba gear on, but to have a look down there. But it's pretty ugly, I'd say. And you do have to keep a constant eye on your actual leader, just for wear, from being in there and hitting that sort of stuff repetitively. Sometimes you look at it and go, oh yeah, geez, because it only takes one nick in the wrong spot, and you're on a hiding to nothing then, because they're at an advantage for sure. So probably, actually used the Samurai 252 in particular of late, which is a bit bigger than the little 101s and 181s, has a little bit more balls to it, even the 302 as well. You may as well not take the knife to the gunfight. You may as well get some sort of cannon up you, and probably something with a little bit more speed, so a 2500 or a 2510, a little bit less of the 2506 finesse sort of stuff that I personally enjoy using. It's just, leaders, pick your choice. You can run 8, you can run 10, you can run 6. No, you can't run. Well, some people have run 4, but that's...
Suicidal.
Yeah, pretty foolish. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to find a way to have some control. You got to find a way to get the bite, and you got to find a way to stop them. So it's a real balancing act as to what you're comfortable with. And I guess again, when it comes to that old saying of having caught enough fish, that if you do practice things and go, well, okay, this is what hurt I can put on such and such a leader, because you don't care that whilst you're social fishing, you lose a fish. You learn a hell of a lot more. There's no doubt about that. So that was something I did, a fair while back. And at times you actually forget it. You don't fish 3 pound for a while, and then you forget what hurt you can put on 3 pound, and you don't fish 4 pound for a while, or you fish 6 for a while, and you sort of. So it's kind of interesting. You've just got to do a little refresh course occasionally when it doesn't count, and so when it does count, but you're switched on enough and you're confident what you're going to do. But also that comes down to your knots. If you're breaking knots off leaders or you're breaking knots at terminals, well, you want to be confident that all of that's going to hold together. And I think that just comes from too long spent fishing every other weekend.
Yeah, mate. No, look, it's a great part of the world. We always feel privileged to fish it when we drive in from out of town. We all enjoy fishing the place, mate, and we're really jealous that you Victorians get to experience that quality of fishing, because I looked at the results this year, and I think we did have bigger bags come out of, on average, we had more big bags come out of Gippy than Tassie. Everyone gave it a red hot go at Tassie, and Tassie had a big average size fish, but the real dinosaurs this year came from Gippsland, so it was good to see.
Yeah, it definitely did happen, didn't it? I think Tassie probably suffered a little bit with the moisture that came down about 2 or 3 days beforehand the Derwent comp. I reckon that might have changed things up a little bit, but and also that pre-fish on the Derwent was pretty impressive. A lot of people just looking at you and nudging, wink, wink, geez, I had some fun today, and you're like, come the first day of the tournament, you went, you all had too much fun yesterday.
Yeah. There could have been 1,000 fish coming on that day, who knows, and that always puts the brakes on a little bit. So
it does.
Awesome, mate. Well, mate, we really appreciate your time and effort you put into doing it tonight, mate. We know that the technology back end was a little bit sideways, but we got there in the end, mate. Again, thanks for keeping us entertained with your angler profiles, and we hope that you continue to remain busy and you Victorians enjoy this fishing gig you got going now. Thanks very much, Wilfred.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Declan. And a shout out too to Dan Mackerel for helping get all that technology up and running so we could catch up with Wilfred earlier in the week. We're seeing Declan's on the chat tonight. Travis Ryan, he's on the chat tonight. Anthony's on the chat tonight. Make sure, shout out to those guys, say hello, pick their brains while we've got them here. Also too, almost forgot, thanks Paul Langley for showing us around your Mercury powered boat tonight. We've got some awesome Mercury merchandise headed your way this week, so keep an eye out for that one in the mail. Speaking of things we want to send out, we've got some winners that we need to announce for a couple of those competitions we've had running tonight. So the first one, as is the tradition on ABT Lockdown Live, where are you watching from? Shout out to Joel McKenzie from Holywell on the Gold Coast. Joel, we've got a prize pack headed your way this week, and make sure you jump on our Facebook, send us a message with your address details so we can get that one out to you. And then the second competition we had running tonight was with Anthony's segment. He had that giant fish that he caught at St. George's Basin. What did he use to catch that big brim on? If you were listening, you would have heard it was the Pro Lure Deep 36 crank. Sorry, that one, but that was in the black. So the first person to get the answer was David Packham. So David, too, if you want to flick us a message on our Facebook page with your address details, we can get this Pro Lure set out to you later this week. So, and now for an absolute champion of the sport, let's roll on through to part 1 of Steve's catch-up with John Schofield from earlier in the week.
If you're Mark Healy, you don't just live on the water. You live for it. You get up, get your shades, grab a spear, grab a boat, grab a friend. Okay, take a breath. Hold it. Hold it. Here, hold this. Go, go. Whoa. All right, now find something to jump on. It's probably too high. It wasn't too high. Time to get going? Time to keep going. How's that feel? And now this is living. For those who need water to breathe, Costa sunglasses.
Well, Steve, it was memorable, certainly, and it was exciting, and it was the fish, and I think you might have even seen it. It was at Lenthals, and it was the biggest fish I have ever seen, not only caught, but other people as well. And I didn't realise, but the boat had drifted onto a snag, which I knew was there, and I got the fish right up into the net, and the braid broke, and I lost the fish. So, you know, I went from like, oh my God, this fish on its own is would have nearly won, to complete devastation. And the emotional highs and lows of tournament fishing, that's what I love. And I think every cell in my body just sort of thrived on that sort of excitement. So it was high and low. I went along because I was invited by Gordon MacDonald to the first one you ever ran, and I loved it, and so I thought I'm going to do this. But I, in fishing terms, I didn't have much self-esteem, and I compared myself with, you know, all the gun names, you know, Brett Thompson and Harry and Matthew Mott. And funny about Matthew, because we teamed up later on, and I learnt an awful lot from Matthew. I think it's always a two-way street. But going as a non-boater, I got to see how everybody operated, and I'm thinking to myself, I can do this better. I can do this on my own. Like, you know, I'd take some time and I'd fish that point thoroughly. I wouldn't just zip past it. And so I think in that year that I was a non-boater, I was like a sponge, you know, and I was soaking everything up, and I was learning as much as I could, and as best as I could, I was open. I've really noticed with other fishermen and non-boaters how some people are open and some people tend not to be, and it restricts your learning. And that, you know, we'll talk about Carl later on, but Carl was the first person. Well, I've never come across someone who was so open as Carl, but we'll talk about that. But anyway, so the next year I went as a non-boater, and I know Carl's a lot like this when people tell you can't do it or whatever. And I'd had a lot of success at fishing maroon on fly, and so I thought, I'm going to go to Somerset, it's close by, and everyone I knew and respected said, oh, you can't catch bass on fly in Somerset. Well, you know, that's all I needed. Press the button and I'm doing it. And so I did it. And that year I just fished Somerset because the year before, as a non-boater, no fish. And my whole goal was to catch one fish. And first session, went out. In the first 10 minutes, I had a reasonable good fish in the well. And it was such a goal that I just sat there and went, well, I've done it. And then what do I do now? And I hadn't even thought past that, really, which seems a bit strange. So then I tried to catch two, and I got two, Anyway, it added up. I think in that tournament I got 7, which is enough to get the win. And like, I was just over. I couldn't believe it. I was astounded. Just couldn't understand it. It baffled me how I was able to do it, but it gave me a lot of confidence. And because I qualified for the grand final, I decided not to fish the rest of the season, which was maybe only a couple of rounds, I'm not sure. And I concentrated on Crestbrook when that was announced that was the venue. And, a funny thing happened with that just popped into my head. I had this dream, a vivid dream of being in the grand final and catching this enormous, like 50 centimetre fish. And I just, something inside me knew that I was going to catch this big fish. And through the whole tournament, I just had this calm, and I thought, I'm going to get this big fish. It was just something quiet. I didn't tell anyone or say anything. And then it got to the very last session, and the pressure was really on because there was 4 of us. One of us was going to the States, and I didn't know what the other guy, and any 4 could have won. And I forgot I forgot about this big fish, and as soon as I forgot about it, I hooked this fish, and it swam straight to the surface, which is a bit rare, although big bass do that a lot on fly. But I hadn't encountered that before. And so I'm thinking yellow belly, so I'm dragging this fish, skating it almost like across the surface, and then just crap myself when it got close enough to realise that it was this huge bass. Anyway, it just sort of went straight into the net, and that was that. And I didn't realise until, maybe a week later or days later that I'd had that dream, So, and while I'm on that, the funny thing was with the bass vampire, because when I was tournament fishing, I just started to, it was like every cell in my body just loved it. So I thought about it all the time. And I woke up one morning, I had this picture before I woke up, and I woke up and I have a pad beside my bed, and I drew this, this fly, which I think you ended up calling the vampire. But anyway, I went up to the tying bench and tied it up, and that was the birth of the vampire. There's a lot of folklore, even in glossy publications, about other people thought it up or designed it or whatever, but there's very little truth to that at all. But anyway, I imagine this is sort of what a vampire convention looks like. Whoops, they're all falling off left, right and centre.
You just need the king vampire at the top, don't you? What do you call the head vampire?
Well, I don't know. Well, see, I've spent, because I loved it, I spent hours fly fishing for bass and evolving the fly, although it's still pretty much the same. But the biggest thing about this vampire is the eyes. And a lot of work goes into these most of these eyes are with Protect paint. And when I was tournament fishing, in my fly boxes, I would have a positive and a negative. And so the positive was for the flies with strong glow eyes, and then the negative was no glow eyes, just straight chartreuse eyes usually. And what I found over time is that generally speaking, glow eyes, 80%, 70% are probably the most productive fly. But there are occasions, and Andrew Robinson won Somerset on fly, that dam that you can't catch bass on. And he had one of my flies, and he showed it to me after the event, and it was a really tough tournament. The fish was sitting on the bottom, and he caught it on a vampire with no glow whatsoever, just straight chartreuse. And he was getting the bites. He used the one fly the whole tournament. He won the tournament. So what I found was that in different conditions, they prefer, you know, sometimes they'll be right over a glow and sometimes not. And that's really a pointer to the way I try and think about my fishing all the time. I try and hold beliefs lightly. I'll give you an example of, remember the tournament at Bjelke-Petersen Dam after we'd had substantial rain. The water was going over. I think there was 3 legal fish caught in the whole tournament, and they weren't that big. I think it might have been Smithy, Matthew and Steve Davies. And it was tough, you know. And I remember it was summer. I think it was really hot, and but after that, I remember Matthew was sort of pretty upset because he was starting to listen to. Everyone was saying, all the fish have gone over the wall. We can't catch them, so they've gone over the wall. And I'm saying, you know, like, nah, like we don't know that. Where's the evidence for that? I think truth-telling is really important, you know. Like, yeah, it's fine to bullshit, you know. Actually, a very wise man said to me once, the only time a fisherman's telling the truth is when he calls another fisherman a liar. And that wise man was your dad. But anyway, to me it's important because we make excuses for why we can't catch fish. When time proved that there was cracker fish, they were just trying to breathe. They weren't interested in eating. They were trying to survive. They were, you know, who knows where they were. We couldn't catch them. We weren't good enough. That's all there is to it. You know, it's not like they've disappeared. And yet, as fishermen, we tend to tell ourselves stories, and it doesn't help us, you know. Like over and over, I get some idea in my head that, you know, this is how it all is, but I've learnt to hold that really lightly because it'll probably prove not to be correct, or there'll be a variation, or, you know, it's just, I think it helps if you're open and you observe around you, you will become a better fisherman. And that's why I really love the ABT system, because that was my experience coming in as an insecure angler, and as an angler building confidence and building confidence. I don't think there's a faster way of becoming a better angler than being a non-boater in the tournament. And that's the pathway I took, so that's the what I would promote or suggest. You know, there's probably other ways and people think differently, and that's what makes the world so wonderful. God, it'd be terrible if we all thought like me.
How good was that? There's so many stories there, and we've got more with John next week for part 2 of that interview, including he tells some stories about the times that he spent with Carl early in the piece. So that just about wraps up this week's episode of ABT Lockdown Live. Joel McKenzie, if you're still watching, we need your address to send out that prize pack to you. So flick us a message on our Facebook page so we can get that posted out this week. Everyone, thank you so much for putting up with me tonight. We got through it together. Steve will be back on board next week for episode 8 of ABT Lockdown Live. 8 weeks already. To close out tonight's show, we've got another short clip from Anthony Calzo. He spoke a little bit tonight about how he likes to rig those stinger hooks onto his soft plastics. So he's been kind enough to flick through a little how-to clip on how he does that for all of us to enjoy. So I'll leave you with that one as we sign out tonight. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week on ABT Lockdown Live.